Hi everybody, it's David from Doctors of Running, and today I think we have one of the most juicy head-to-head matchups of the year. We've got the Saucony Endorphin Elite and the Saucony Endorphin Pro 3. What are the similarities? What are the differences? Let's get into it. So when we take a look at the Saucony Endorphin Pro 3, a lot of people are familiar with this. We have that Power Run PB, P-Bax based midsole, PBA based midsole. We've got a relatively good traction underfoot, a little bit more outsole. It has that carbon fiber plate, that speed roll that we've known. High sidewalls, very balanced rocker profile, softer on foot with the landings. The tongue, very lightweight. Everything is kind of aimed at that reduced weight. So when we take a look at the Saucony Endorphin Elite, a lot of similarities there. They're doing everything they can to cut weight. When we take a look at the upper, there's a lot of holes throughout the upper there. Both sides. The way they get around that is they have this little strap that goes along the lateral and the medial side, and it actually comes down around the plate as well, and it just kind of holds that foot in so they can kind of get away with having a little less material there. Let's go into the specs. Specs are very similar, actually the same. So when we take a look at the Endorphin Pro 3 and the Saucony Endorphin Elite, we're looking at 39.5 millimeters of stack in the heel, 31.5 millimeters of stack in the forefoot. This is an 8 millimeter drop between both. I don't know the retail difference. I want to say this is $225 and this is $275, so about a $50 difference, I believe. This could be $250. I got to go double check on the numbers there, but is the price difference worth it? And I think it's going to depend on the runner. So the Endorphin Elite is going to be the top shelf option for Saucony going forward for this year. When we take a look at the differences, we look at the midsole composition. So we have Power Run PB in the Endorphin Pro 3, and we have Power Run HG in the Endorphin Elite. Now, when we take a look at that, I don't know exactly what the materials are on the inside. Everything seems to be a supercritical version of something nowadays. Very soft, very bouncy, but it's a little bit different than the Power Run PB experience. And the geometry is also slightly different as well. When we put these together and we stack them, you can see that the toe spring in the Endorphin Elite's much sharper. Everything about the Endorphin Elite is race day. It's going forward, going fast. The outsole, there's good outsole coverage, but very thin, just kind of a streamlined road racing shoe. When we look at the Endorphin Pro 3, still a streamlined road racing shoe, but it's got a little bit more traction underfoot. The bevel in the heel, the toe spring up front, everything's just a little bit more balanced in the Endorphin Pro 3. When I go on running experiences between the two, I have noticed this as well, that with the Endorphin Pro 3, I think it's kind of like the People Super Shoe, where it's like, has nice, smooth, balanced transitions throughout. Nothing really feels overdone, and you know what to expect from each mile. And I can run slow, I can run fast, and everything kind of comes together that way. The responsiveness does get kicked up a notch when we start looking at the Endorphin Elite. This shoe is very much race ready, and I think this is one of those shoes that, like, I'm only really going to pull it out for special efforts where, like, if I have 2 hours of running, I might pull out the Endorphin Pro 3 just to have the long run and have a nice, smooth cadence. I wouldn't quite do that for the Endorphin Elite. This is definitely a racing option and something I'm really only going to consider when I want to go fast and have that high performance feel to what I'm wearing. I said it earlier, but with the toe spring, it's noticeable. Everything is very quick, transitioning, gets you up over that forefoot fast. The bevel isn't super dramatic. It's actually pretty darn similar between the two on the Endorphin Pro 3 and the Endorphin Elite. So that heel to midfoot transition is somewhat similar. You have a little bit of a bucket sensation in the Endorphin Elite. You have this in the Endorphin Pro 3 as well, but not as dramatic. So you have this like large sidewall that essentially follows the lateral and medial aspect of the Endorphin Elite almost the entirety of the shoe, like all the way through the forefoot. So you feel very like centered and guided in the Endorphin Elite. One thing I will say about the midsole experience is the Power Run PB does feel a little bit softer. It has a little bit more give to it. Like the Power Run HG feels just a little bit more resilient. Feels like it just has a little bit more spring and bounce to it, and the foam doesn't quite have as much give to it. So ironically, even though the foam is still soft and bouncy and the stack heights are the same, this still seems to ride just a tiny bit firmer. It's still soft and bouncy, so I think if people want that experience, they're not going to lose it. It's just going to feel a little less plush than the Endorphin Pro 3. When I take a look at outsole and traction, I think it is noticeable. I have better traction in slick conditions with the Endorphin Pro 3 versus the Endorphin Elite. This is definitely a road racing shoe in the Endorphin Elite, where the Endorphin Pro 3 feels like I can kind of just take it on a couple of different surfaces where I don't quite have that trust in the Endorphin Elite. But if I'm looking to go fast and have my race ready, try and go for that PR, I am going to end up choosing the Endorphin Elite over the Endorphin Pro 3. It works for my mechanics, that balanced heel and midfoot with the really aggressive toe spring up front. It just makes you feel like you're falling to the next step and you have a lot of bounce to it. And the shoe's lightweight. If I have to make a comparison Endorphin Elite, it's almost like a baby between the Endorphin Pro 3 and the Nike Alphafly version 1. This is a shoe that feels very quick, responsive, really wants you to move forward through. So two of my favorite shoes put together. This is going to be most likely my racing shoe going forward for this year. I know there's a lot of other shoes out there on the market that are going to be coming out, so we'll see, but the Endorphin Elite's a hard one to beat for me. With that said, they're both phenomenal shoes, and you can't go wrong with either. They both have good lockdown throughout. They both secure you well. This one just feels a little bit more race specific, where they're both race shoes. They both have snug fits. They're like, everything's all there, but this one feels like I'm only going to take it out on race day, where this one feels like I have a little bit more versatility with it. So it's just going to come down to the runner, what they want, how they want to experience their ride. The Endorphin Pro 3 does feel a little bit wider underfoot, but it is a softer platform, at least for me, the way it feels. I know the plate's slightly redesigned in the Endorphin Elite as well. So you just kind of feel a little bit more connected to the ground in the Endorphin Elite, and you kind of have a little bit more of a plush, balanced, rolling feeling in the Endorphin Pro 3. So that's my comparisons and contrasts of the Endorphin Pro 3 and the Saucony Endorphin Elite.